A person that uses dark psychology and manipulation, inevitably their goal is to exploit you and gain complete control over your mind and your identity. If they can do this, they can pull your strings and turn you into an object of whatever they want you to be. I want to talk a little bit more on dark psychology. This is just going to be a freestyle tape. So dark psychology and manipulation, there are so many techniques used. And to avoid this from being 10 hours, I'm just going to get to the bullet points for now. In future live streams, we'll go into more details and I'll answer specific questions if you have some on this. But they use a variety of techniques from NLP, which is using language patterns and also looking at things such as eye movement, listening to the rate at which you're breathing, your vocal tonality, basically how you're presenting yourself, how you're expressing yourself. And by studying those things, so they can essentially hijack the human mind in order to be able to control you. Another technique that they use, of course, is studying body language and studying body language cues. This is really important for someone that uses dark psychology. They also develop a pretended, unnatural, or fake rapport with you. They try to earn your trust very early on, and they do this by hijacking techniques that are acquired and used in normal and traditional settings. So, for example, how you are with your friends, they will mirror this behavior and mirror this body language. They can do this through a variety of ways. One of the ways is they can get you to tell a story about something that's very sentimental or a very fun day. And essentially, while you're telling the story, your eyes are actually moving in different directions. The words that you're using, the pitch of your voice, and your body movements will convey emotion. And so one of the things that they'll do is actually mirror this emotion back to you in order to further control you down the line by getting you to think and feel as if you were there with them. So a simpler way of putting this is essentially they take on the behavior characteristics that you're expressing when you're happy in order to get you to feel more of a connection with them. And people might think, oh, that doesn't work. Oh, it works very, very well. They use it in negotiations. They use it in persuasion. It's used in advertisement. It's used in all forms of, it's used at all levels. But again, most of the time when someone is mirroring you and when they're developing rapport with you, it's not anything bad, but it is when it's being used by someone who is practicing dark psychology or manipulation. A person that uses dark psychology and manipulation, inevitably their goal is to exploit you and gain complete control over your mind and your identity. If they can do this, they can pull your strings and turn you into an object of whatever they want you to be. And this is one of the things that is quite common with narcissists, with psychopaths, in some cases sociopaths as well. It is something that is of concern because when you're dealing with a predator like this, naturally you don't want to think that that's what someone's doing. Let's start with that. And number two, it can be very difficult to prove because again, they are mimicking human behavior. So when they're using these techniques, you have to go on not only intuition, but there are also little things that we'll talk about in future videos, questions that you can ask them, and things that you can look for in order to determine if someone is trying to use dark psychology on you or manipulation. Essentially, a person using dark psychology camouflages themselves as someone who is what they are not, in order to seek from you a certain kind of attention, trust, or energy. So one of the ways of putting this is they will pretend to be an expert on something they're not an expert on. They will pretend to, I can give so many examples on this. They can pretend like they went to school and they didn't go to school. They can pretend like they studied science. If you're into science, they didn't study science. They may pretend like they're into spirituality. They're not into spirituality. But because they can listen to your language patterns, your tone of voice, and even use similar language to what you're using that they've heard from you, it can come off like, well, they're just like me and they sound kind of like me, so they must have the same knowledge or information that I have, and they don't. They don't. That's one of the tricks that they use. If you're a person that's very empathetic, they love those. And the reason why they love people that are empathetic is because essentially they can mimic your traits of empathy. I've seen them do it and it's just gross. You know, they'll, make their eye movements look like yours, and they'll make similar facial expressions, and they'll change their tone of voice to mirror yours. And essentially they're trying to pretend as if they have empathy for things that they may not care about at all. So let's say you have empathy for something related to animals, and you're telling a story about how you saved an animal or something like that. They'll tell a similar story in this example, and they'll use similar body language, similar voice characteristics, similar mannerisms. And so automatically you'll want to trust them because they're actually mirroring to you what you are and mirroring to you something very similar to what you said. So these are some of the techniques that they use to quickly gain your trust and gain your rapport, or gain a rapport with you, in order to be able to control you later on. But once they have gained your trust, they will essentially try to create themselves as an archetype within your mind and as something that's very precious that you can't lose. And this is where it gets this is what would be in the lines of the trauma bond. Remember, everything with the narcissist or a narcissistic psychopath, it's all fake. It's all artificial. It's all based on archetypes that they help to create within your mind. One of the ways to get free of this is by knowledge, and also by understanding that you're not gaining anything from them. You're not getting anything from them. They have nothing to give you. It's all within your own mind. But they are the ones that helped coach and coerce by manipulating language, words, emotions, fantasy, etc. By manipulating you, they created a trauma bond. But if you actually break it down, there's actually no real person there behind the narcissist. All it is archetypes, images, fantasy, language, etc. that they created within your mind to get you to have an attachment to them. They want you to have that attachment so later on down the line they can control you, so they can manipulate you and essentially try to do some negative things. So we'll talk more on this later. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.